Welcome to the subject of Principles of Management. In this particular subject, we need to talk about the basic concept of organization. By organization, if we simplify the meaning of organization, we can define organization in the following manner. A group of people coming together, completing their designated jobs or designed job to achieve the common goals and objectives in order to achieve the predetermined result. If these all four things are combined together, that basically forms an organization. If we kind of simplify these above four mentioned terms, we can start off with group of people. Group of people basically means people with different kind of skill set. In the earlier period where management did not include this particular division of work, which was later on introduced by Henry Fayol, the efficiency of the organization, most importantly the output of the organization, was much low. What do we mean by designated jobs? Designated jobs practically means the specialization of the workers. Every single worker at this point of time is doing something or the other. That's something which the organization wants to do, wants that particular worker to do. The worker does it day in, day out. At the end of the day, that particular worker becomes specialized over that particular work. This is at the end of the day called specialization. The most common goal and objective of any organization there in the market, I want to remember my students that it is nothing but to maximize the profit. If we simplify the term profit, profit is practically income minus expenditure figure. If that particular resultant figure gives us a positive one, we basically talk about the organization achieving profit. If the figure is a negative one, we term it as loss. But here, one interesting fact I would like to share with the students is that you need to remember that maximizing profit is one aspect of the organization. But if the organization wants to grow in today's world, it has to keep an eye open on the growing cost. Most importantly, these days, the concept of profit has changed from maximizing profit but with minimizing cost. This will actually at the end of the day give the organization their desired result which they were looking for. So this is, student, basically what do we mean by organization. If we now come back and talk about the divisions or the types of organization, you will be amazed to hear that basically we can divide any and every organization present in the market into two broader sector. What are those two broader sector? Number one, we are talking about product organization. Number two, we are talking about service organization. Now, any organization which has a product at the end of the day, talk about Samsung, talk about Microsoft, talk about Nokia, talk about what else, what not, we are talking about any product organization. And most importantly, the other half of that market belongs to the service sector. Any kind of hospitality sector, like if we are talking about the hotel sector, the hospital sectors, the parlors, the restaurants that we are talking about, basically falls into this service sector. Coming back to the functions of a management or the work done by an organization, if we talk about the basic work done by an organization, we can subdivide the basic works of an organization into five broader parts. The five broader part consists of planning, organizing, staffing, directing, and most importantly, controlling. If we kind of shortly elaborate this entire five processes easily, then we can easily say that planning is a process of choosing appropriate and certain kind of achievable goals, and in course of time we need to determine the actions which ultimately can help us achieve those. Most importantly, the actions are based on different kind of strategies which we need to use, the actions which are needed to be taken, the resources, any kind of and every kind of resources that is required to achieve this particular goals. Now, planning can be also divided into two broader sections. That is, one, we have a long term planning, and second, we have a short term planning. Now, basically, any kind of planning that involves more than 5 years of planning is basically termed as long term planning, and any planning which is required for less than or 1 year or up to 1 year can be treated as short term planning. Coming back to second kind of work done by the organization is basically organizing. Organizing is practically a kind of what can we say, it's a kind of workflow that needs to be done, or you can say a preparation of a flow chart. Most of us are pretty well accustomed with the term called flow chart. So basically a preparation of flow chart which needs to be done in order to achieve those kind of determined goals we have already taken into place or we have already talked about in planning. The basic functions that organizing covers up is the identification of task, dividing the authority and responsibility between workers, distribution of workload or choosing right kind of people, most importantly coordinating between different kind of work. This is what, in short, organization or organizing is all about. The next function of an organization is practically the easiest one, that is choosing right people for right kind of position so that the organization can achieve efficient and effective result at the end of the day. Basically choosing people, that is the most important part of stuffing. Coming back to our fourth, should I say, the functions of management is practically directing. This last two part are the most important functions of an organization. What do we mean by directing? Directing involves the leading, the communication, the motivation, most importantly the supervision of workers. In directing, the organization certainly takes care about the determination of right processes to complete the job, constantly motivating their workers so that they can achieve higher results. Most importantly, the workers determine the style of leadership that needs to be taken in organization. And as we know that leadership in an organization can mostly be divided into two broader sections, that is autocratic and democratic. And lastly but not the least, the process of controlling. Here we talk about setting up a certain kind of standard. Standard for what? Standard for individual performance measurement. Individual performance measurement is basically done in the process of controlling. Most importantly, measuring performances, reviewing that performances and taking corrective measures if that performance requires upgradation. Here what I can easily say to you that measuring of performances is generally taken as a, should I say, industry standard. A certain kind of best process is chosen from the industry and that has been kept as a set standard. Any and every single organization follows a certain other perspective of another industry so that it can reach that particular desired level of result. So in short, these are the functions of management. Environment to the organization can be referred as the surroundings or the conditions basically in which the organization carries on its work. As we know that organizations or the companies that are there in the market is basically a kind of social entity which is formed by different kind of structures, and they act together to reach that particular collective goal which is already preset. So it becomes absolutely necessary that every factor inside or outside of that particular organization which has a tremendous kind of influence on the activities completed by the organization to be judged well for the smooth running of the organization. Now, coming back to what are the types of environment that the organization faces in day to day work schedule. Any environment of the organizations can be subsequently divided into two broader parts, that is internal environment and external environment, or supposedly we can transfer that into internal factors and external factors. Basically, internal factors are those kind of factors which the company refers to as those are within the control of that organization, no matter whatever they are tangible or intangible. These factors, after they have been grouped together, becomes the strength and the weaknesses for the organization. If a group of factor which generally brings the positive effect to the organization will and always will be considered as a part of strength of the organization. But on the other hand, if a group of factor or one single factor prevents the development of the organization, it is considered to be weakness. Basically, in internal environment factors or internal environment, those factors which hamper or develop the organization can be talked about the manpower, most importantly, or the people who completes the tasks, money or the financial stability that the organization provides, most importantly the machine or the technology that the organization uses, most importantly the material or the kind of quality of material which the organization is willing to develop or is using to develop the final product, and most importantly the marketing resources. Most importantly, you can talk about the relationship between employer and employee, the kind of task execution or the operations that the organization uses, the relationship between the top level bottom level management, and what are the factors in their decision making. All these are kind of internal environment factors for the organization. If we move on to the external environment factors of the organization, these are organizational factors which belongs to the outside of the organization and which cannot be controlled by the organization. The organization has to take in external environment factors into account and adjust and remodel their working environment as well as their plan to execute the output based on that particular changes. There are certain numerous examples of external environment factors. Most importantly, we can talk about the government. The government basically controls the laws and regulations related to the business. The second most important factor within the organization which the company or the organization cannot control are the customer demand. Most importantly, another one the organization cannot control are the improvement or upgradation of the competitors. Most importantly, another important factor is the technological changes that the organization cannot control. So, if we talk about, these are basically the internal and external environmental factors for the organization. Now, if we move on to one more thing, that if we divide the organizations into broader sections, organizations can be generally divided into three broader sections, that is the line organization, the staff organization, and a mixture of both, that is line and staff organization. The concept of line organization will be discussed in this particular section. By definition, line organization is a certain kind of organization where the flow of activity moves from the top to bottom, but the authority and responsibility basically moves from the bottom to top. Line organization is also called a scalar organization or a departmental organization. It is one of the most oldest form of the organization which provides the organization with the simplest pattern of the activity grouping. The most highest point of the organization and the most lowest point of the organization are connected by a fellow group of middlemans. Middlemans basically act as a link between the topmost point and the bottommost point. Here, every single superior basically passes on the instruction and the directions towards his subordinates and commands the entire control over them. And it is also their responsibility for all the performances of his or her subordinates. Line organization is basically named such because it is the direct lines of authority flowing from the top to bottom of the organization. Now, line organization can be furthermore divided into two types of organization, that is pure line organization and departmental line organization. For case of pure line organization, every single individual, whatever their level may be, whatever their work may be, performs the similar kind of work. In this kind of organization, the grouping into divisions is done only to facilitate the correct kind of control and to ease the burden of supervision. Now, coming back to the departmental line organization, in departmental line organization, the activities or the work done by the organization are divided into certain departments. Namely, we can take an example of sales and marketing, production, human resource department. You can talk about finance department. So those are the kinds of departments that the organization basically gets divided into. Now, each department in departmental line organization is basically headed by a departmental manager who in the end has the sole control over that particular department and is given the freedom of choosing the workflow, the people that he wants to work with, most importantly the processes that he chooses. Every single thing he has a freedom to choose it. Now, every single department under this kind of method enjoys similar kind of freedom and similar kind of authority. Now, if we come back and talk about the line organization being applicable in a certain kind of scenarios, those are the line organization are best suited for the smaller and medium sized firms or organizations which have a limited kind of workforce. Most importantly, line organizations can be easily opted for the organizations who follows continuous processing. And most importantly, the organization who have an automatic plant where the supervision is less but the people has to work to their ability can be an example where the line organization are basically preferred. The merits of line organization is practically the line organization provides, as we have talked about, the most simple form of the organization. It is basically very easy to understand and implement that particular organizational form. Authority and responsibility has generally a direct kind of flow, and the workers or the employees know their position in the organization very easily. On the other hand, this kind of line organization structure basically does not require the special kind of people or the persons who are specialized in their work. So it is also cost effective in its nature. Here, the organizations have a certain kind of definite responsibility attached to it. The responsibility of the workers are absolutely fixed and defined properly in every level. Everybody in the organization basically knows whom to answer, and most importantly, they know to whom they are accountable to. So this is very much easy to control because the responsibility of for the performances at each level is clearly defined. So the organization or the management of that particular organization easily knows which area of the performances should be focused on, and also if there is a certain lack in that particular level of performances, they know that which area should be focused on to exercise control. Here it is very much easy in line organization that it is very much easy to effect that particular control and initiate the correct kind of measures. Another very important aspect of the advantages of line organization is that it provides a very quick decision making. Now, why am I saying this to be a very quick decision making? Because the control is very much unified, only a single authority is present, a fixed kind of responsibility is being given, and the workflow basically moves from top to bottom. So basically any decision making which is needed to be taken can be taken from the top, and that can be effected throughout the organization. Basically these are what we call the advantages of line organization, but there are different kind of disadvantages to this process also. Excessive work pressure is one of the most biggest, or can I say the biggest disadvantage of this process. The particular departmental heads have to handle too much responsibility, and as a consequence they are overburdened with work. Similarly, overburden of work hampers their quality and quantity of the work done by them. Another main disadvantage is that line organization does not provide any kind of support to the concept of specialization. Here the organization tries to take in certain kind of workers who know everything. He has to do n number of jobs together at a similar point of time, but it is very much ineffective in the long run. The organization will not go into that particular forward nature until and unless there are specific kind of workers who do specific kind of job. Most importantly, in this organization, maybe one of the biggest problem is the rigidity or the inability to change. Line managers or the top level managers in a military organization basically focuses too much on the discipline, thus making the organization inflexible. But if the organization had different kind of responsible persons throughout that particular level, the work distribution and the flexibility of the organization would have been much better. The concept of functional organization or the staff organization was initially suggested by Frederick W. Taylor, who was the father of scientific management. Frederick Taylor basically instituted the fact of or the necessity of functional specialization based on the division of work in order for an organization to achieve the higher level of efficiency. Now, the Taylor believed that if a person has technical knowledge, the education and energy and honesty, whatever of it, can be overpriced or practically be available for the organization at a higher price, but that higher price will provide the organization far more efficiency and effectiveness rather than choosing people who does not have any kind of speciality. In functional organization or staff organization, the employees are responsible and answerable to those superiors only who has the specialization over that particular work. In short, here the division of work focuses on the major part of the organization. The superiors who are specialized in their areas are responsible for that specific job, and the workers has to answer to them rather than answering to a person who does not know about the job. So in short, this is the concept of the staff organization. Coming back to the merits of staff organization, the staff organization ensures the division of work. It provides the required knowledge and guidance by which the workers can complete their work. Since the workers can complete their work with the specific kind of knowledge, at the end of the day, the efficiency and effectiveness of the worker increases. Thus, the functional or the staff organization helps large scale production or mass production through standardization. Again, the efficiency of the organization at all level, I have talked about it earlier also, at all level is due to improve basically for the presence of specialized service. And most importantly, the major disadvantage of line organization becomes the biggest advantage of the staff organization is that it is highly flexible, as the changes can be made throughout the organization because the distribution of work is available here. Though I have up to this point of time talked highly about the process of staff organization, still the staff organization has certain kind of disadvantages attached to it also. Functional organization violates one particular aspect of management, that is the unity of command. Here people maybe there is a possibility that people or the workers may be confused between the authority. Here dual authority can provide a certain kind of level of confusion. That means suppose worker A reports to his manager, his immediate manager B, whereas B reports to his immediate manager C. Now if the higher manager, that is C, gives certain instruction to A, the A worker becomes confused to listen to which particular person, B or C. There lies the confusion in authority in the staff organization. Another important disadvantages of that particular structure is that the lack of coordination, as the specialist or the specific workers or the specific work distribution people has the certain kind of independence to their work. Every single specialist is likely to fight to promote and preserve their specialities by asking for allotment of funds in the budget. Now this particular resource of fund is most should I say non-present resource in the entire organization. The distribution of fund becomes the most important and the most severe headache of the organization if the organization is working under staff organization. Now coming back to another biggest disadvantage is that since the organization has been divided into functional groups, now each functional group will try to prove their point up to the end of time. So if the organization requires an immediate result, an immediate decision making, that cannot be achieved through staff organization.